Okay, so thanks everyone for coming on to the webinar this morning. My name is Cassie Fazy and I'm one of the associates for Yorkshire Care Alliance. I met with Charles it'll be a few weeks ago now to talk about Emma AI, and it's just a fantastic concept which we wanted to share wider really with our associates. So I'll hand over to you Charles, and we'll go from there if that's okay.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks so much, Cassie.
Thank you.
Yeah, it seems a few weeks ago. It's funny, isn't it, how quickly time goes? I remember our initial conversation. I have got a presentation. I'm not sure if you want to go for that style or yeah, so we'll run through the presentation, but I'm really keen to get people's feedback and also any questions, because obviously AI and artificial intelligence is something we hear so much about, and I'll explain a few concepts behind it. But equally, if anyone's got any questions, or feel free to raise your hand. I will keep my eye on the presentation as well, so you can just raise your hand at any point, and we can make a kind of bit of a collaboration, and you can ask any sort of questions you might have. Bear with me. If you can see my screen, can everyone see my screen okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so as Cassie mentioned, last year, me and two co-founders, we founded Emma, and really that was out of our own experience. My background is I operate two home care businesses within Essex, so I'm lived experience of some of the challenges that we're all facing. And where this starts from, and if I just take it back, what is AI? Because we hear, as I say, a lot about different technology companies now using artificial intelligence, but there's multiple different strands, and we need to come from a common starting point. But before we do, it's really around AI is leveraging computers and machines to mimic the problem solving and decision making capabilities of humans. So we're not really talking about machine learning within this, and machine learning, or the ability to have deterministic algorithms, is one strand of AI now. It's now branded as AI, but it used to be machine learning. But really what we're focusing on uniquely at Emma at the moment, and to my knowledge, we're one of the few companies actually using the large language models. And these are the models that have been brought out by OpenAI, Google, etc., Microsoft. They've got their team now within OpenAI and Anthropic. And these large language models have proliferated through the consumer market. It's something that many people now use with ChatGPT and Gemini and the different large language models that are available to consumers. But how do we as care companies, what does this mean for a care company? So I'm going to explain a lot more about how we use it, how you can use it, what product we've built off the back of it, and really where this is all going. And then I'll speak to even some updates within the AI world within the last one week. So within the last week, there's been huge developments, and how are we as a company looking to harness those developments and then be able to give care providers access to these sorts of tools. As you'll probably know, it doesn't matter what sort of software you're using at the moment or what company you're interacting with. AI is in our lives today, and it's using models to determine our behavior, and then from that behavior we're able to then predict our future behavior. And you can already see how that would be beneficial when you're looking at delivering care and using historic care delivery in order to help with future decision making. So just a bit of background. I like to ground everything within the CQC. I think we've all gone through CQC inspections, and it's really important that we look at where the market is and where the problems are within care. And we've gone through a process, most of the sector now, so we've digitized, and it's how do we take that step further? But when you look at the CQC State of Care report, what you see is staff burnout. I've got some statistics on the background of the care sector, and as you'll see, the vacancy rates for the sector has increased, and has particularly increased over the last few years. Now that may be due to COVID, working conditions, etc. we have 152,000 vacancies within adult social care. And when people say that AI is going to take all the jobs, it's not that it's going to take any one of the care industry's jobs. I don't think anyone would say that that there's even jobs to be taken. We need more people in the sector, and in fact, we need 152,000 more people. So if we can augment people with the tools of AI, we might be able to bring down that vacancy rate, not just by trying to introduce more people into the sector, but also trying to make people within the sector more productive using these tools that are now available. So it's a really exciting time. And if you look here as well, you'll see within adult social care and care workers specifically, 37% of care workers come from outside of the sector. And we had a lot of this within COVID. And we had, as the care sector, one of the few sectors that was still running. And then where have all of those people gone? Because we did have enough people during that period because we were one of the few sectors still running. So how do we retain people within the sector, but also improve their lives and make their jobs easier through using AI? And then just to reinforce this point, as you'll see, the registered manager turnover rate has increased by 5.3%, and now that's to 26.3%. And really, we're honing in on this managerial team that I believe, when you look at the provider information return, the regulatory framework, the new single assessment framework, within a lot of tenders, I'm not sure if everyone's seeing this, but definitely within our localities, there's increased demands for data, harnessing data, feeding that back to local authorities. So how do we do that in a more efficient way? But also, how do we support our managers to do that when they have so many demands on them already? And I think that's a really key dynamic that's going on in the sector now, and probably explains some of this 5.6% increase you see within registered managers. And again, the problem that we have here is, and we just used an example of Jane. Now, Jane is joining a care industry. She might be joining your care organisation. And this is just a typical induction and onboarding process. So this is a 2-week process. Some might be longer. But if you look at what that person has to complete within that time period, and 37% of these people are coming from outside of the sector, they have a huge amount to do within the first few weeks of being inducted. They have to go through all their mandatory training, their screening, their interviews and everything, understand the policies and procedures. We often have so many policies and procedures about how we want our care organisation to run, but how many of our team are aware, can have access to, can have easy access to, and can really understand how you want your care organisation to run. So that there's a huge part there where we have so much information for that person to digest before they start. And then that person has to go out and deliver care. So this is just an example of 17 service users over 39 hours and 5 days. And dependent on your setting, if you have the supported living setting, that amount of service users will decrease. Possibly the dependency would increase. So the level of complexity of care would then increase. And how do we give people the right tools so they can deliver the care, but not in a way that they're going to feel that it's too much. They're going to feel that going through, because the first 3 months of employment is the time where you see the turnover rate increase exponentially more. So this is just an example, and we've done quite a few updates, and I'll speak to those. But this is just an example of the benefits of Emma. So as you can see, on the left, we have one of our digital social care record platforms, and on the right, we have Emma. Now, Emma's based on, we have a native app, we have a dashboard now. So we have a few developments that are now going to be available to care organisations. But this is the general premise. If I want some information, I now have the ability to speak to my data and get back this information. So if you look on the right, I've asked a simple question: what can I talk to Alan about? And really where this comes from is, I believe there's a void between the amount of information and data we hold with the numerous assessments that we do and the amount of information that's used in day-to-day care delivery. So, and why is that? And it's often because if you look on the left, we have numerous forms and numerous platforms outlining all the individual aspects of that person. So the mobility, their life history, their medical history, and so on, any medication they're taking, etc. And to take all of that information, and sometimes that's on numerous different platforms, and to be able to get a simple answer to a simple question is something that can take you many minutes, if not more. And what ends up happening then is escalation. And we'll speak to the impact of Emma within our own organization, and then the impact that Emma can have within your own organization. And then on the right, as you can see, Emma has taken the information that we hold within the digital social care record platform, immediately answered it, scanned across systems, synthesized that information, and then delivered it to the frontline care team. And if you look at a more clinical answer, so what do I need to consider with Alan's health? So again, you're going through the same process of just naming the service user. All of the data is then ring fenced to that service user. I'll speak a little bit more to the data governance that we use, and also how we can use different information. And what I mean by that is how can we use some healthcare information as well? And we're running a pilot right now with, or we're scoping out the pilot with Mid and South Essex to launch later this year, about how do we take the OT, physiotherapist, and district nurse information as well. If I just drill down on some of the answers to this question. So Alan has multiple medical conditions, including Parkinson's, high blood pressure, etc. He requires support with his medication prompting. It's listing that. It's taking that information from the digital social care record platform. It's taking into consideration the policies and procedures, so your unique policies that you would have for your organization. It's synthesizing across all of that and then just giving your care team the information they want when they need it within seconds. So instead of having to, as I say, look through that, or possibly they don't have access or easy access to some of the sort of the way that you want this care to be delivered within your organization. So you can have FAQs, you can have a different additional organizational sort of instructions within there, escalation processes, what happens if someone falls, etc. And if I just drill down on some of this answers, so it's within point 5 here, you're seeing that Emma's pulled that Alan has a PA. It's including again about Alan's memory difficulties, the medication he's taking, the sleep pattern he wants, and it's giving that care team access to that information within seconds. And as you'll see with the developments with AI, this is only progressing to get much faster, much cheaper, and that means that we can do this across much larger data sets. And again, we need to ask the question, so what does that mean? Well, it means that we can use all the historic care delivery that we've been using, and Emma will also be taking into consideration that. And as the context windows or the amount of information these large language models can use increases, we'll be able to take in more and more of that historic care delivery within these answers. So again, what does that mean for a care assistant, and what does that mean for a care organization? Well, you could say, how's Alan been, or is there any concerns that need to that's happened within Alan's care? And we've had multiple examples where there is granular kernels of information. We have one example with one individual within our own service where she initially stated within one of the visit notes about a week prior to having a fall that she had pain in her left knee. It was just a small additional bit of descriptive notes. And then 3 days later, she then had pain again in both of her legs. This was something that was escalated, but she said, don't worry, it's fine. I'm all okay, just a little bit of pain, but, nothing that's not manageable. So we then escalate that process, but we really couldn't get to the position where AI is scanning through every single day's care delivery, and then being able to give you insights into, okay, where are the correlations, what's happening with that person, and it's almost painting a picture of what is that person's health like on a day-to-day basis. When you see the digital transformation that social care has gone through, we've gone through paper and pen, now to the digital social care records, and really the transition now is moving from those digital social care records and the thousands of visit notes and data points that we have through the applications that people have and care assistants have on their phone, and moving to the ability of, okay, what do we do with all of this information? Because I think if we all employed someone to be full-time reviewing, analyzing this information, we wouldn't be doing much else, because the amount and quantity of that data is just so vast when you're running a care business, that to be able to then analyze that every single day when that care is being delivered would be a mammoth task. And we don't need, and the benefit is we don't need to do that, because AI can do exactly that. So it can do that for us, provide us those insights. And then instead of clicking through a dashboard whereby you need to again train your team, that was another really huge point when you look at Emma. And this is sort of the dynamic that I'm speaking of, where we go from non-digital to digital care planning to Emma. So I've gone through 2 digitizations within 2 different organizations, and there's a huge amount of training, a huge amount of consultation period to make sure that everyone's comfortable with using this technology. And we often find that implementing a digital care planning system, is a huge feat for any organization, and many have gone through this process now. But really, what's unique about large language models, and if I just go into a little bit more detail on what that really means, is these are models that digest large amounts of descriptive or written information. They're able to then process that information, and uniquely now within the last 2 years, you have the ability to have inference. So they're not just taking that information and picking out keywords here and there, medication or mobility or any environmental factors that are at play when delivering care. They're actually understanding what that information means. So when we speak about large language models, it's really the ability for models to understand written information. And that's completely unique now over the last 2 years of really what this technology can do. So then when it comes to, okay, so how does this work, and where does how can care providers be using this? Well, if you have Emma in your organization, you therefore just have the ability to speak to that information instead of clicking or trying to find it across all of the different mosaic of digital tools you might be using. It's using one system that can answer any of your questions, and your care team have access to that. So again, when you look at employee survey results, this was another driving force of us using this, was when we were speaking with our care team and seeing their survey results, we were seeing that communication is one of the most paramount things within a care organization. And that's communication between the service user, the care team, the service user and the management team, and your management team and your care team. And we need a system to be able to bring this together so that we can close the feedback loop that we get within care. And that feedback loop can include both verbal feedback that we get, written feedback through the surveys, but also feedback that we're getting within the actual care that's being delivered. So and really the transition now is Emma AI and artificial intelligence allows you to just have a simple conversational interface which anyone can use. If you've messaged your friends and family on any texting service of WhatsApp or iMessage or whatever you might use, you have the ability now to use Emma. So this is not like a digital care planning system where, as I say, you have to go through potentially months of training. This is something that's easy to use, easy to access, and actually it's technology for once that I say makes things easier, which is not always the case. If you look at, and this is a bit more background, and this is some of the work that we've been doing with Mid and South Essex, and we've gone through a learning journey ourselves within understanding, okay, what are the applications currently in use? And you're seeing this already. And some of the work that we're doing within social care in the UK is actually the same technology and same products as what Google are using within the Mayo Clinic. So Google ran a study within the Mayo Clinic called MedPalm 2. And essentially what they did was they used the electronic patient records as well as the background information for clinicians over in America. And they gave an equivalent of Emma to these clinicians and to the Mayo Clinic. And they found that the accuracy, response, reliability of these answers were over and above the base level of what a clinician would need in order to pass their clinician exam. So essentially, it's more intelligent than the base rate of, or the base level of those clinicians, and it's responding within seconds. And then radiology is a huge example at the moment, and it's really, as I said, increasing accuracy. So diagnostic rates, errors are decreasing by up to 85%. Accuracy of detecting breast cancer is 94.5%, which again outperforms radiologists in some studies. So we always need to take into consideration that we have human error. But this is not to reduce the fact that accuracy needs to be as high as possible. But we always have to have a base level that these things, unfortunately, do happen even within human delivery of care. But how can we augment that with AI? And so really where this is going at the moment is these large language models are the foundational models. They take billions in order to train. They're trained across huge amounts of data. So essentially these models, in order to learn and understand the English language, they're trained on and run tests on millions, hundreds of millions of data points, if not billions, in some models, depending on the size of them. And what's happening, and OpenAI have just released ChatGPT-O, and that now allows audio and imagery as well as just text. And so these models are constantly evolving and getting smarter and more accurate. And how do we allow care organizations to use these? Some of the initial concerns that people have had with some of these models is really around accuracy and reliability. And one of the terms that are used within artificial intelligence is hallucinations. And the best way to describe this is a model might have a hallucination, because if you look at what the question, you ask a question to any one of these models, they're having to synthesize across the whole internet. So just like a human brain, if you were to try and synthesize across the whole internet to answer a question, you may get confused from time to time. But that's not what we're doing at Emma. What we're doing at Emma is using the power of these models, but then taking the care organization's data and connecting the intelligence with the model with the care organization's data. So instead of searching the whole internet and understanding the whole of the internet to answer your question, it's simply looking at your data. So the accuracy, reliability, and hallucination problems aren't there, because if you compare what the scale difference would be, it'd be like a grain of sand on a beach would be a care organization's data, as opposed to the whole beach, which is currently what these models are trying to have to inference over. So you can see there how if you reduce the data down by orders of magnitude, you get orders of magnitude increases in accuracy and reliability. So I always find it useful just to run through and give an in-depth context of this technology, because I believe we're going to need to understand it in the same way that we've gone through this digital transformation. And now we're going to digital social care records. We've gone through a huge process of education, and that's through lived experience of onboarding people onto these systems. And now we've got to a point where I think we all understand all of the different systems and what they do, and the digital tools that have been so beneficial to our own organizations. But then we need to ask ourselves, okay, when a company says to us, we're using AI, what does that mean? Because we need to know when we're speaking to them, we need to ask the right questions. So, are you using large language models? And therefore, what guardrails have you put in place? A large part of our work over the last year has been putting in guardrails so that the large language models can not only interact with your care organization information accurate with high levels of accuracy and reliability, but also moving forward is, okay, how are they changing their foundation models in order to ensure that you have the highest functionality that's available to the consumer today? And businesses will go through this process, and if they say, okay, we're not using any models within our AI, then they're not using AI in its newest form and the AI that people are speaking about, which is absolutely fine, but it's a completely different use case and a completely different technology. So we do need to be educating ourselves and trying to understand, what technology, what underlying technology is within the systems that we're using. So NLP is natural language processing. So as part of that training data, then it's a case of, okay, how do you translate those? Because it then converts them into 0 and 1s, the model does, and then it converts it back to natural language. And that's how you're able just to interact. So these are examples where just really simple examples where it doesn't matter the question. So what should I do if she can't answer the door? The key safe, how do I get access? This is a simple example of, if you use traditional search, with many of these examples, there wouldn't be an answer because it's not understanding the actual question. But now with this technology, it's understanding the underlying question. So as you can see here, a very similar answer is given, and that's because the understanding of these models. And really the benefit and the way that we've set up the architecture of Emma, it doesn't matter if your information's in Word documents, that might be your policies, it doesn't matter if it's in a different system, and it's in Excel format, or it's in text format. So as you can see here, these are all the formats that Emma can digest and then synthesize across. So this means when it comes to integration into your technologies, it's much, much simpler because we've taken that effort away. One of the things within health and social care is we have so many different technologies across so many services. So we currently provide a discharge service, and within that, there'll be multiple different multidisciplinary teams, which I've mentioned with the pilot. And all of those different systems will be able to integrate in different ways. And what we need is a common translator, a system that takes that and then is able to understand that and then give that information back to the care team. So as you can see, it's multiple data sources. We do the information labeling and we do the synthesizing so that you can use it. It's easily accessible, and it gives actionable advice for the care team. So your care team have a 24/7 support tool that can be there. And where we really see benefits in that is both within the out of hours support. So we've seen out of hours volume of calls decrease within our care organization. And we've actually run a study within one of our care organizations, and we found for every 10 employees, 4 hours are spent each week retrieving documented information and relaying that. And that was based off of telephone calls made and answered. And what we always say at Emma as well is, what about the calls that aren't made? where advice should have been given or a question should have been asked. Because what we've found is there's more volume of queries being asked to Emma than there was telephone conversations being made for the same subject. So if there's any medication advice, especially when it comes to more complex medication, how do you deliver that? When we go back to our training, it's a short period of time. We might do additional training, targeted training, but sometimes people just want that advice and they want that support. And sometimes we might, especially within those out of hours areas, we also see a higher uptake, which is really interesting within international recruits. So as the diversity of our workforce increases, and it has done, if you look at all of the international recruitment we've done, Emma now actually we're developing as well, has the ability to for the person to speak in their native language, and then the answer to come back within English based on your own care organization information. So again, it's how do we make this information so much more accessible in an easy format? And then now with over the last week, with the innovations that have happened within these foundational models, we can get to a point where you're speaking in, speaking out. So the AI assistant is there 24/7 for your team at a high level of accuracy. You can just speak and have that sort of support call, and that doesn't mean that your managers or that escalation process necessarily happens, because an accurate, reliable answer has been given to your care team when they want it. But then should that information or should something arise, Emma will say, please speak with your managers, or this needs to be escalated. And these are just more examples, and I'll send through this presentation after, just about the power of natural language processing. This was one of the examples that I noted just before, and this is what you could see about Tessa complaining about her left knee in visit 3. She had pain in her legs. In visit 4, she had fallen. So how can we pick up these small signs where the historic care delivery that we've delivered and we've got the information on, we're staying on top of what is this telling us? And as I say, running this at scale now is coming down at costs, and it means that care organizations can have access to this completely revolutionary technology. And this is what I was explaining a little bit about with the larger context windows. Basically, these systems are becoming more and more powerful over time. So within the next year, you're going to see the ability for these foundational models to be able to infer over, for example, pressure sores or imagery, and then be able to give you an insight into this. Now, there is obviously some medical equipment regulations, so the extent to which that this can be in care providers' hands and actually being used will take some time. But we can get to the point where we can have essentially a highly trained, highly skilled, specific social care AI assistant being there for your care team in audio and in written, just through a conversation. And to me, that seems like one of the best levels of support we can give our team. And when it comes to the retention and the burnout, if people had this within their hands, they would, any query or anything, they would be able to just ask Emma, get that information. And then with the pilot that we're running, and again looking how we can expand this to other trusts, then if not only was it taking into consideration your information that you're storing, but then all the multidisciplinary teams that are coming in and delivering specialist care to that individual. Because we're all working within these silos, and we're doing this process of integration between health and social care. But we need also a parallel integration between the data that we're storing. And then imagine if your frontline care team can have access to that information, but in a way that's not form after form after form, that if they did want to click through, they'd have to log into 3 systems. They could just simply ask a question and see okay, what was I escalated that there was a mobility issue on Monday. I'm aware that an OT arrived on Wednesday. What is the update on Thursday? And your care team could not only find out how that care has been delivered before the OT arrived, what that OT has put in place in terms of equipment and additional support, and then possibly what physio plan that person had moving forward. And really, this is sort of the North Star that we're aiming towards. And this was one of the user studies that we did within Ashley Care. So within the first 3 weeks of being live with Emma, Emma had 106 requests for assistance from 32 carers, helping the frontline delivery of care of 43 service users. And it was an incredible response. It didn't require training of how to use Emma because it is simply a conversation. And you can see within those numbers that it's just for once, there is a technology that's able to be used just freely and easily. And the benefits that can have will only increase over time. And that's hopefully what we're going to be, that's what we'll be working on, and we'll keep everyone updated on that. Again, if you look at some of our core features, we're connecting to currently our policies and procedures, our visit notes. And if I just yeah, this is just another example there. And if you look at some of the typical questions, we see a high level of questions on medication. Again, any referrals that have been made is taken into consideration. Again, some of our service user surveys. So where care has been delivered well, we're able to strip out that information. The AOs are able to strip out that information, and then when someone's asking about advice of how to deliver care moving forward, it's also picking out, well, Jane said that within her survey that she really likes her care being delivered at these times, personal care delivered in this way, meals delivered in these particular meals are her favorite, etc. So all of the things that she's given back to the care team in terms of her own feedback, it has been used. And we've had 2 inspections within the period of creating Emma, and within our last inspection, we got outstanding and well led, and a large part of that was actually implementing Emma and having that level of support for our care team. So what we're seeing is the CQC, and we've had many meetings with the CQC about this, and that they are completely on board and understanding of the benefits that this can have within care delivery, and they're seeing this as a care provider going one step forward of how can we support our team, especially if you're looking at lone working within home care or supported living with your remote workers within that setting. We just moving into the care planning capabilities. So these are some of the technologies that we're currently working with. We've got a great relationship, and I think a lot of these companies are open to seeing how AI can really support their own customers. We currently use Access. So again, if you're on Access care planning, we have that all set up and ready to go. And then what do we do with this? So we're seeing all of these questions come in. We're seeing our team needing this support. And it's okay. So now what do we do with this information? And so what we've done at Emma is we've got a dashboard where managers can not only see what questions are coming in, and this is really around auditing, visibility. One of the parts of what AI used to have is it used to give you an answer, but you wouldn't know how it got to that answer. Now, within Emma and the Emma dashboard, we actually have a referencing tab. So for every question that's coming from the team, that might be a manager, that might be a care team, you might have tried to pull out information where you needed to give it for your KPIs for your local authority, or whatever the query may be. Then you have the answer given by Emma, but then you have, where did Emma find that information? And that's one of the key open box, not closed box, not black box, which is what AI used to be. It's a development the AI community has made, and one that we've implemented and we feel really strongly about, is how do we then give care providers the trust and confidence in these systems that Emma is pulling through the information updated as it is within your own systems. And then moving, as I say, one step further than that, it's, do we need targeted support? For those looking at medication queries, do we need targeted medication training? If for people asking how do you operate a certain hoist, do we need some moving and handling training? So again, or if someone's looking at different soft skills and they're asking questions about that, do we need further training there? Do we need to look at, okay, can we provide additional support for that so that care team member can get to know their service users better? So we're taking these queries and then we're feeding that back to the care organization so that they can have a targeted approach for their care team. And what we'll find there is we're actually preventing problems before they arise, because often, just like as I said, on the service user side, you're seeing information, little kernels of information about how care is being delivered. You have the same thing for the care team. So the care team may ask a few questions, but that could be indicative that possibly they don't feel confident enough, or maybe that they just needed that a bit of additional support on that specific individual, or maybe they do need additional training. So we're really trying to give that information and that data and that and that insight back to the care provider so that they can actually action on it. And onboarding with Emma is really just a case of us having access with your digital social care record, your policies and procedures provider, any other digital tools you have. When you look at some supported living and care home organizations, they have huge swathes of Internet of Things, such as sensors, acoustic monitoring, etc. And all of these data points is a process that we do at Emma. You don't do this information. You don't do this part of the process. I've been there digitizing with and it's such a huge process, and we didn't want the implementation of Emma to be similar to that. So we speak with your partners, your technology partners. We look at the open integrations they have, and then we agree that with them, and then it's just a case of giving you the access to Emma once we have those data sets within the Emma database. This is some of the user experience. So we look at accessibility, the information that you want held within the system, and then adoption. And these are just some of the comments that we have there. We did again another survey. Why do you use Emma? How often do you use Emma? And what are the queries and questions coming in? And all of these queries and questions are taking that away from your managers, because these questions and answers simply can be answered by at a higher level of accuracy and a higher level of convenience by a system like Emma, rather than sometimes escalating. But it's obviously important to have that human connection with your team, but that should be targeted in observations, supervisions, spot checks. You know, in your compliance regime that you have, they're really the high value add interactions you have in your care team. Come in one-to-one meetings, these small requests and these small levels of support, we can be taken away, and it's beneficial to be taken away so that everyone can have their time back to get back to the high value add activities that we all do as care organizations. These are some of the benefits and some of how Emma works in the background. I've explained quite a bit of this. And then the security. So GDPR compliant, SOC 2 type 1 and 2 compliant. The processes that we use, we're using databases again housed in the UK. So and again working with healthcare partners, the NHS, the levels of data security and data protection are extremely high. So we're compliant with that, and various different regulations in that sphere. So if I just skip through to we actually have, if I stop sharing, we have a video of one of our managers, and then I'll just break for some questions, but just to give you an insight into some of the early feedback from our team, if you just bear with me. So this was our care team review, and we asked the care team, what's your honest feedback on Emma? And this is just a compilation of some of their experience.
My name is Lakshika Mendes.
My name's Karen. Nancy.
My name is Chinezite Mwaiko.
My name is Samanthi.
My name is Kelly.
My name is Maxine.
My name is Tatenda.
My name is Confidence. I'm a care assistant.
Healthcare worker.
Care assistant.
Care assistant.
I'm a care assistant.
Carer.
Yeah, sister.
Wow, that's really good.
My name came out. She knows me. I saw something about the key safe number. Key safe number. Oh, got it in seconds. Wow, magic.
Quick response. I will give it that.
I'm very impressed.
I find that if we're out and about and we can't straight away get into all of our notes, I can WhatsApp before I go to a certain client that I've never been to before and ask Emma what his or her general health is about, and it will help me out. So I haven't got to sort of go into this new client and say, right, what can I do for you? What's wrong with you?
It's super convenient, and it's like talking to a friend. That kind of easy. Within a few seconds, the answers coming to us.
The benefit is it's there at your fingertips. It's quick, it's easy. All the information is just displayed on your screen. Have a quick read through. Brilliant. You know.
Responding very fast, because sometimes you call on call, maybe it's the big phone is busy and all that, or maybe the person is not speaking and all that. So I think Emma will be faster responding.
But if you're busy and your driver just got there, but you obviously want to go in knowledgeable, like I say, with my first few single visits, then I can look and think, right, I know what I'm doing.
It's meant to help us when we are out there in the field, so that we'll reduce our call to the on-call. Most times when you call them, the line will be busy. So once you type in the client's name and information, Emma brings out whatever you want about the client and you pick it up from there.
Sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I do this, I don't know if they have sugar, you know, like things like that I don't know. Is it like bed change today? Things like that. So yeah, I would, rather than phoning the office or phoning someone else, it'd be good to know.
Is the client on any new medication that I need to know about? The background of the client, any specific care needs that have changed, stuff like that. So yeah.
Does this person need, what is their background? So I can get a little knowledge of, maybe they were a sailor, something that you can talk to them about, you know. Do they take medication? Yes, they do. Right. So in my head, right, I got meds, I got this, I got that, toileting. Without going through the app, without, reading it, it will just tell me what they need. And it's pretty good. Key safe as well. What's the key safe number? They'll just tell you without you keep having to go in the app.
I think Emma is just kind of a friend.
I feel that I'm supported with Emma as well. It makes you feel a little bit like you're not on your own out there, and you have got someone that will respond to you quite quickly.
All positive. Definitely continue to use Emma. Yeah, good concept. Thank you.
I love it.
I'm very impressed.
So that was just a bit of a background. That was some of our care team, got around sort of 10 minutes or so, maybe slightly less. But really want to hear people's feedback. We work with the current care organisations, and we work closely with them. We try and understand their problems. As a care provider myself, it's really important to have this element of collaboration. Really important to get the feedback from the care team. We're constantly asking the care team, how are you getting on? What would be more useful for you? And we want to do that with anyone, again, who would like to move forward. they have to be used through WhatsApp. No, Blythe, we have had development since that video. That was the initial concept, and we have an app with a dashboard now. So we have, and that gives us even greater visibility. That even now gives us a calculator of how much time saved for your care organization. There's within the dashboard now, which is connected to our native app. We even have more insights, which again I'll be able to show probably within the next 2 weeks. So yeah, but the app is live. So yeah, that's not through WhatsApp. Thanks, Blythe. Can it work offline? That's interesting. It would need some connection because the data would have to be live, and any live data would have to then be calling through to your system. So again, if it was offline, there may be concerns on delay. Where we have, speaking about offline, we've had numerous examples of our technology going down. And within those elements, Emma comes to its forefront. So the technology goes down, the person can't access their app, they can't seem to log in or whatever the case may be. And we've had this, unfortunately, within the systems that we use. And Emma is there explaining what visits you need to attend, what what you need to do within those visits. So no on the offline, but when your system is offline, Emma's still available. So just a little yeah. Yeah, Jaron, are you got your hand up there?
Yep. Cheers, Charles. This is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. A carer can say, how do I host Margaret? And it can say, don't host Margaret. She's very anxious. Make sure Sarah is there in the room with you when you're doing it. Make eye contact. Talk to her throughout. This is the stuff that people don't read in the care plan. Yeah. It's amazing. A big question I've got is, of course, if I'm using it as a user, does it know who I am? Does it know my role in the company through some sort of login? And therefore will only show me perhaps what I'm allowed to see from my company's data?
Yeah, a fantastic point. Yeah, great question. Yeah, exactly that. It's ring fencing. Not only we have ring fencing on the service users data. So when you're speaking about one service user, it will never confuse it with another because that's completely ring fenced data. From the care team's perspective, they have certain permissions. Those permissions can be configured. And again, that's really important because as I spoke about survey results, but some people might not want some of those survey results and feedback given by the service users to actually be accessible to the care team. Possibly we want to digest that information ourselves and have actions on it. And then equally, as we're transitioning to this health and social care pilot, again, you can see how some healthcare data and social care data we might not want to share with across companies. And that's for no other reason that sometimes we have information that needs to be held just within our own organization. So, that's a really important point, great question. And yes, that can be configured. Is there any other questions? No. No,
I'll go again if no one has.
Yeah, go on.
So yeah, there's this wave of AI sweeping various sectors, and I am kind of predicting a wave of regulation to come after it. It seems, Charles, from what you've said, though, that you're very ready for that. This idea that you can, no black box, you can route exactly where Emma is getting its information from. The example you gave of the grains of sand on the beach, you're also ring fencing that care company's data, that vulnerable adults data within that care company's data. It feels really neat. Is the risk, though, that when you start integrating with external data sets, GP data sets, NHS data sets, and things like that, it could get scarier?
Yeah, it's a great question again, and I think that we need to be careful with the regulation because I've read, especially within health and social care, there's some white papers, there's some joint committees And in my opinion, unless you are unless you're actually using this technology and building technology for care providers, we need to be really careful about outlining some of the regulation involved, because we need people actually with lived experience of using this technology to be creating the regulation around it. And we don't need to be pontificating on the problems before actually understanding what those problems are. So you're completely right in terms of the hallucination, the accuracy, the referencing. And another technology and company that we've been working with is Rainbird AI, and they actually use knowledge graphs. They've been doing this for 10 years. It's another strand of AI, but within that strand, you have even more traceability, auditability, and so yeah, there is numerous ways that we can give that visibility of how these models have worked. Moving into health and social care, I think that a small example, and it is different, but if you think about it, when you go to pay someone, it will have, okay, yes, I can confirm that person's account number and sort code with that bank is legitimate. And think of that innovation. That's sharing of data, that's sharing of personal banking information, and that's been confirmed. And why is that? Because that's the benefit to all, that you're not paying the wrong person. And it's the same sort of concept that we need to bring to health and social care, where there is a clear benefit, because currently the status quo is we're not sharing this information, and the status quo is actually risking patient safety, because where you have people working in silos, we need to bring that together, because it might be that the physio has changed, or the OT has said that person needs to be bedbound for the next week because maybe their equipment's no longer suitable. And how do we ensure that without that information, because sometimes that information might not be communicated, it should be, but we don't need to be relying on people to be communicating that information. Our systems in the background need to be communicating that information. So my point is, it doesn't matter whether it's the digital social care record provider, Emma, or the healthcare record provider. We need to be doing everything in the best interest of the service user. And if it makes sense for the service user, if it improves the care we're delivering, then we should be doing it with the consent. And then there's questions on transferable consent and how do we give consent for these models. And, that's a really important part that we need. But then that comes with education as well. So this is why, half of my presentation was trying to describe how does this technology work, because we do need to understand it to a level, to a point where we can say, okay, yes, we can trust and we can give that consent and be able to explain it to the individuals as to why we're implementing it. So, there's a few points there, but to my mind, if we can make this transformation, it would not only improve efficiencies and productivity, but it'd improve the care that we're delivering. And if that's the common goal. I don't know if there's any more questions, Cassie, or...
Wow, I think we could talk about this all day, Charles. It's just what a great hour we've had. Thank you so much. Really informative, really interesting. And I think, fantastic system for social care, definitely. What I will do is, are you happy for me to share your details with everyone that was on the call today? So if anyone's got any further questions, or they can contact you directly. I just want to say thank you everyone for attending today's session. I'm sure you'll agree it was a good one, very interesting. Our next breakfast event for the YCA is on the 4th of June over in Scarborough, and there'll be more details on that on LinkedIn later on this week. So everyone is welcome to join us if you are able. But apart from that, thanks everyone and have a great day.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.